Your neighbor tells you about the unstable man in the cul-de-sac who claims to have been abducted by aliens. And then there's the woman in town who claims to see Bigfoot all the time. Your boss, who you greatly admire, confides in you that he has started speaking with his wife daily when he gets home from work. She died 8 years ago. It's hard to believe this stuff, and you write these stories off as overactive imaginations. Are these people seeking attention, or are they a bit unstable? No matter what you think, if you're like me, you walk away wondering, what if that was true? The What If It's True podcast features stories by ordinary people like you and me. Something has happened to them, something so strange they are in agony unless they tell others. My name is Cameron Buckner, and the What If It's True podcast is available at whatifitstruepodcast.com and on all available podcast apps.
Welcome to Beast TV. What was that? You better get a fresh dip and buckle up. Welcome to Beast TV. We are so thrilled that everybody is tuned in tonight. Our chat room is full. And so if you're watching us now or if you're watching us later, we just want you to know how much we appreciate each and every one of y'all. How you doing tonight, Larry?
Man, I'm doing great and looking forward to the guests we got coming on tonight.
I am too. If there's just some people that you talk to that you really connect with, and our guests tonight are those kind of people. They are salt of the earth people, and just tickled to have them. We got some pretty cool evidence to show tonight. We've got some pictures and we've got some audio. So if you see me leaning towards the screen to see, I have actually gone blind in my right eye. And so I am having trouble seeing, and I backed my truck into a tree last night. I was unloading some wood that I had been cutting, and I can't, anything to the right of the brow of my nose, I cannot see at all. But they tell me it's fixable. It's just going to take a while to get in and have a whittle on it for me.
Hey, your parents told you whenever you're younger, if you did that, you'd go blind.
Larry, only you.
I couldn't resist.
Larry, let's get the ball rolling on this. I'm really excited to share our friends with our viewing audience tonight.
All right, tonight we got Paul and Pam from Arkansas. Y'all know them as PJ Arkansas in the chat.
Hi.
How y'all doing?
Hey. It has been so nice talking to y'all. Kind of our mediator between us and PJ Arkansas is Bradley Hatcher. Y'all will probably remember him as the co-host on the Late Show on Bigfoot Odyssey. And
He's the
just,
dude in the pink shirt.
yeah, he was the one in the pink shirt and the ponytail.
He said a lot of good looking couples. He talking about me and you or Paul?
I don't know.
You got to watch him.
I'm sure he's going to mention that you've got a pink sleeping bag.
Probably.
But why don't you just give us a little background on y'all and where you grew up? Anything that you want to talk about? Kids, work, anything, hobbies?
You want to go first? I grew up in Arkansas. I was actually born in St. Louis, but I grew up in Arkansas. We have 2 kids. Our daughter is a police officer, and our son farms. We have a granddaughter, and we have a little grandson on the way. So, and things I like to do is I like to hunt and fish. I'd rather hunt and fish and go shopping. Most women like to shop, not me.
Nothing wrong with that.
And you, Paul?
Yeah, I've lived here all my life. Within about 10 miles from where we live right now, I've rode up right here in this area, and I like to work and hunt and fish.
Sounds like you, Larry.
Yeah. Except I have to work all the time and I don't get to go hunting or fishing.
Yeah, I'd rather do more hunting and fishing than working.
Me too.
I do enjoy working.
What are y'all hunting? What type of fishing do y'all do?
I bear hunt, deer hunt.
Over here in Tennessee, you got to call them bear.
Bar.
My bad.
And we really like to trout fish.
Mm-hmm. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Well, I don't bear hunt or bar hunt. I don't bar hunt. But I do deer hunt. So.
Do y'all bear hunt with dogs or do y'all bait them or what?
No, just no. We hunt public land, so it can't bait or anything on there.
All right.
I guess I need to get this out of the way first. This isn't easy. It's been almost a year since Carrie Arnold's accident. And we just want to know, want Linda to know, and family and friends. Many of the people on here tonight were good friends with Carrie. And Carrie's last filming was at Paul and Pam's place. And so they got to spend quality time with Carrie. And I don't, Pam or Paul, do y'all have anything that you would like to add to that?
He was just a good guy.
Good guy.
He's really missed. I really liked him.
One thing I'd like to say is, he was always about awareness, and, we was kind of aware, I guess, before I actually saw one. But the one thing he taught me was how naive I was. And that's what, what I learned by watching his shows was how naive I was being about it. And, I wish I could tell him that, but that is one thing that he really taught me.
Now, when you say that he taught you you're being naive, are you talking about as you went out hunting, you could hear wood knocks or things that you just didn't pay attention to?
Well, more so of my mindset was that they wouldn't hurt you.
Yeah.
And yeah, and some of the things that, I mean, we had heard knocks and stuff like that. Later on, we started kind of figuring out what could be going on, but just that, because I was thinking in my mind, oh, they ain't gonna hurt me. I mean, that's how naive I was,
Yeah.
and just, after listening to him and, and his encounter and the people he interviewed, it made me realize, that this could get potentially dangerous, so.
Yeah, definitely. As I told y'all earlier, I know one of the last times I talked to Carrie, he was talking excitedly about what all had went on at y'all's place.
Mm-hmm.
Do y'all want to cover some of the things that were happening that he was filming and doing audio, but unfortunately he never got to release any of that?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the thing that, the first night, first two nights he was here, not a whole lot happened. I mean, we heard some things, but the last day and the last night that he was here, it started out crazy because I was in the house, he was outside eating, and he texted me and he said they're yelling. And Paul had left to go to town. He had to go get something from the store, and I think he had to go out to his work. And so when I went out, I caught the end of something, a yell, and then I heard two perfect whoops. I've never heard whoops. And then he was fumbling around with a hot dog in his hand, trying to get the camera turned on. He got the camera on and caught the end of the last whoop. And he said there was 5 different yells, or whatever you want to call them, from 5 different areas. Now that's crazy.
Yeah.
So that means there was 5 of them around here. And then later on that afternoon, we done a scenario with me getting in the pool. I told him I'd do this. I offered this to him because that seems to when things happen. And so I was going to get in my pool, and he was sitting up in front of the house, and he told Paul, he said, "You just go ahead and do what you normally do." And so I went to cleaning, and I would take the net and I would, clean around and then hit it on the side of the pool and knock the leaves off. And I don't know, I had only done it a couple of times, and then you could hear this tree crack and then just, through the woods, and it fell to the ground. And I was like, oh my God. And so they all went over there, and Paul and Carrie went up the left-hand side of the big power line out here, and when they was going up, they heard what, 2 knocks? 2
knocks. They was
loud.
There's a big ridge there, a big hill there, and it was up on that ridge, and there was 2 real loud knocks.
Yeah.
He was about 100 yards from me. And he turned around and hollered, "Did you hear that?" Yeah. We got within. We was looking for the tree, and I knew about where it was at just from the sound there. And we stopped about 50 yards from it. It was a lot of grass and stuff in there, and we didn't want to get seed ticks on us, so
yeah,
we didn't go any further.
I sent you a picture of that tree, Mark.
Yeah.
A couple of days later, or maybe a week later, me and Pam went over there and found it.
Yeah.
And he got in seed ticks again.
I don't like them.
But and then that night we went out into the power line just to see if we could get anything, and that's when we saw the lights. Carrie was just like, "What in the world?"
Yeah. And
it started, across the top of the power line and went into the woods, and then it zoomed back across, and it was pulsating, but this was not no lightning bug. this was way too fast and way too bright, because when it went into the woods and it lit up, you could see the trees. It was crazy. And he really did not. And we've seen lights. I've seen them. Paul's seen them. So I don't know. But that really knocked Carrie for a loop, I think. He did not know what to make of that. Because it even came down close to the ground. And when it got close to all the bushes on the ground, you could see all the bushes. It was crazy.
Huh.
And he got all that on film, too.
Yeah, he had all this.
Oh, man. I'd like to have seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were talking about how Carrie made you feel naive about things. One thing that struck me about Carrie, I'm 6'2", but Carrie was about 6'4", maybe 6'5", and big. And I mean, I would stand beside him and I would look small. And his encounter scared him so bad. And you look at him and you think not much is going to scare this guy, you know? And that's what kind of set my wheels to turning, because Mark and I would go out in a hammock and go 2 miles back and camp and all that, and Carrie would be like, y'all crazy.
Well, you know, you talk about how tall he is. I'm barely 5'1", so whenever I was standing next to him,
yeah. Tell us what first piqued your interest into Bigfoot. Was this before y'all had bought y'all's land, or were y'all even aware or had a curiosity about these creatures?
I started hunting this place probably in 2004, I believe, 2002 or 2004. And I think it's about the second year that I hunted out here. There's an old logging trail that goes out to the power line, and I had a little box stand set up in that power line. And I was walking down that trail, and there was 5 footprints just in a straight line right in front of me there. And I seen those, and I thought, at first I thought, what in the world would somebody be doing out here walking barefooted? I mean, it was wintertime, you know. But I don't know. And they was probably about 8 inches long, but I couldn't see the toes on them. I could see from like right behind the toes all the way to the heel, and they was really fresh, like if it was right there in front of me, you know. And but I knew it wasn't a person. I've never seen anybody out here, and the man that owned the property at the time, he didn't allow anybody to hunt out here. I was the only one that he would let come out, and I've hunted it, you know, for 20-something years now, and I've never seen anybody on this place, you know. Those tracks.
Well, at that
I
time,
really didn't know what to think.
I mean, we wasn't thinking Bigfoot at the time, which
not really.
I wasn't really hunting too much back then. Our kids were still kind of young, but you know, I guess we didn't really have a lot going on right at first. I guess the next thing that I can remember was when I started hunting. It was, you know, probably a couple of years later. I was going to that same stand that he was talking about, and there was a tree limb. It was about 3 inches in diameter, probably, wouldn't you say?
Close.
And it was literally snapped off the tree. It come from about 10 foot up in the air. I knew there was no way a buck could have done it. And I was looking at it, I was like, what in the world? Because you tell it wasn't cut, it wasn't twisted, it was literally snapped off of this, and it was alive, you know. And so I went onto my stand, and then when Paul came by later, I showed that to him. You know, we was just, you know, thought that was odd. But then the next day, he brought his brother out, and his brother was hunting at a different stand from, you know, the one that I was sitting at. And you know more about that.
Yeah. Well, it was an afternoon hunt, and I told him, I said, go down there and sit in that stand on the creek. And so he did. He went down to that stand there, and instead of getting in the stand, he decided to just sit on the ground underneath the stand. And right at dark, he kept hearing something down in the creek, making a little bit of racket. And so he just started focusing on that area. And he said all of a sudden he seen something on two legs, and took off walking up the creek. And it stayed in the creek, took off walking up the creek. And he said I could see it from about the waist up. And it walked all the way and got out of sight from him. He said, I don't know what it was. It was just tall and black. He said, I couldn't really make out what it was. But I went back down there with him to do just a size comparison. And I had him to sit back in the same place, and I got off in the creek. And when I walked up the creek, he could see me about from top of my shoulder there up. So whatever he was seeing was a good,
He said it was
2 foot taller than me.
because he could see it from the waist up.
He could see it from
Yeah.
the waist up.
Now, does this creek, does it have flowing water all the time, or
Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
and it was walking in the water the whole length of the creek?
Yeah, now it's not a lot of water in that creek
Right.
up in there. It's real shallow, but
Yeah.
it is running water all the time.
It runs right in front of our house. So
Yeah. Huh. We've always had an idea that they might travel into the water, because we've seen prints as the water levels have fallen over here. They're muddy creeks. They're not rock, you know.
This is
So
all rock.
you can see indentions through the creek in a lot of places where, and we've always thought that they did that to hide their tracks basically and travel.
Every time it seemed like every time my brother would come out and hunt with me, we would hear the wood knocks. I mean, just all the time, and it'd drive us nuts. You know, just what is that sound? You know, we didn't know what it was at the time. You know,
Yeah.
it'd always be up. It seemed like it would always be up on top of the ridge. If we was hunting down by the creek, it'd be up on top of the ridge up there. But we would hear those all the time. We would talk about it. What is that knocking going on? You know.
Yeah.
But that next day, after he seen that, I come back out the next morning, and I went to that same stand, and I sat in it. And just after daylight there, I probably 200 or 300 yards up the ridge from me, I could hear, and I don't recall exactly what the noise was, but it was an odd noise. I'd never heard it before. It was something up there making all kinds of, I don't know what it was doing. It was, I had never heard it do that before. Some kind, I want to say vocalization, but maybe chatter or something. I don't know. It was weird. I don't really, you know. And so it kind of freaked me out. And it left there and headed down toward the rivers, what it sounded to me like. And there was some dogs apparently down toward the river there, because they just started barking like crazy. And so I don't know, it spooked me. I got down and I went to the house. I don't know what it was.
But I mean, it's just been, you know, a series of things like that. Like we had now this was really odd. You know, we came out here all the time. The elderly couple that lived here, they had to go move in with their son. He lives in a different state. And we would kind of oversee everything for them. And we would come out here probably sometimes 3, 4, 5 times a week. And it was getting close to deer season. So we had feeders set up, and we came out here one day, and the elderly man's son that owned the property, he had come in and bush hogged the field. And there was a stack of 10, and he had moved that stack of 10, and the grass was dead, you know, where the 10 had been stacked. And we drove by, and Paul looked down, and there was a old flip phone laying in that dead grass. And so we stopped. He thought it might have been the man's, phone. And then we got to looking at it. It was old. It had been chewed on. So he took it and he laid it on top of that tin. And it's flat out there. And the tin was probably 6 foot away from.
At least. Maybe a little further.
He laid it on top of that tin and we went on about our business. Well, then we came out probably, I don't know, the next day. I'm thinking.
That was on a Monday. Then we come back out.
And we kind of always would follow the same trail, and we drove by that tin, and that phone was back in that grass, that dead grass.
Right in the same place.
Right in the same place. And I looked, we was like, what? And so he picked it back up and put it on the tin. And then, we done whatever we was doing, and then we come back the next day, and so we was kind of curious, so we drove back there, and the phone was gone. And there was a piece of pipe. I don't know what.
It was a piece of 1/2-inch steel conduit pipe that you run wiring through. Yeah. And it was about 2 foot long. And it was laying in that dead grass exactly where I had found the phone. Same place. Same place.
And so Paul picked that up and put it on the tin. And by this time we are like, what is going on? And so we left, and we didn't get to come back the next day. And, we was really wanting to get back out here. So it was like a day or two later. We come back out and we drove right to there, and that metal pipe was gone. But there was a little flowery button. It's one of them little buttons that, I don't know if y'all have ever been in an old house trailer, but they used to have those little, it looks like flowers. They would put the screw through the hole to hold the ceiling up, and they would be
right
all over the ceiling. Okay. One of them was laying there in that grass, and the pipe was gone. And by this time we was just like, what is going on? And so the best of my recollection, we put the button on the tin.
I don't remember.
That's what I'm thinking, because I had my hair in a ponytail, and I pulled out the ponytail holder, and I had a piece of candy in my pocket, and I laid it down there. And when we come back, the button was gone, but my stuff was there, and it stayed there for a long time. Now, and you found the phone.
I found the phone probably 2 months later, something like that, and it was probably 200 or 300 yards away from that spot. In the power line. I was actually mowing part of the power line there, bush hogging, and I found it there. Now the piece of pipe, I've never seen it again, or
the button.
Wow, I think I'd bury that phone if I kept.
I don't even know
what was funny is I didn't know he found the phone, and we come out here because this is another thing. We was finding a bunch of deer bones out here, right where we built our house. They was everywhere, and we thought it was coyotes. And so we was gonna, come out and see if we could call up a coyote, see if that's kind of what was going on. Well, I climbed into the stand, and he had put that phone in the stand.
Oh, that's funny.
That Paul, you can't take him nowhere.
No, you can't.
I was sitting back watching. Boy, that was so funny. I wish I would have had a video.
Did you come out of the stand?
She did.
Yeah, you can't take him anywhere. But and then after that, I'm trying to think. We, I would hear knocks. I would hear things like behind my stand that would never make sense. Like a loud thudding, like thud, just a loud.
Like if you took a big rock or a chunk of wood and dropped it.
That's what it would sound like. But and then one day we was hunting. It was in the evening, and where my stand is at the edge of a power line, and there's a fence line that runs behind my stand, cuts across the power line, and then it meets a tree line this way, like this. And I was sitting there, and I could hear dogs barking, and I could tell they was getting closer. And they cut through those woods there, and then they went up there into that point where the tree line met the fence line. And they was rolling all around, and I thought, oh man, I knew it probably messed up my deer hunting. But I kind of thought maybe they had a young deer down. So I got down out of my stand and started, hollering at the dogs, telling them to get out. And I thought, well, I'm going to walk up into that corner and see what they was doing. And I had to walk up like this little hill to get up to that corner. And as I was walking up there, I smelt something. It stunk. And I kind of stopped. I thought, because I didn't know what it was. I was kind of looking around for something dead, but this was even beyond something dead. It had like a urine, musty smell to it. It was gross. And so I walked on up to that corner, and as I was walking, I thought I heard something, but I wasn't sure. But then I stopped, and that's when I knew I was hearing something let out this. It was a deep, deep guttural growl, and I mean deep. I knew whatever it was had to be big, and I've heard people now say that they could feel it. I never felt it, but it was like it surrounded me. I knew it was coming from across the fence over in the woods,
Cedar thicket.
in the cedar thicket. I knew it was coming from there, but it was just like, I don't know. It just surrounded me. And so I knew not to turn my back. So I started backing out, and I had to back probably about 100, 120 yards until I hit a creek. And then once I got to the creek, I had to turn around and cross the creek, and then I ran to the truck. But I told Paul, I said, I can't hunt back over there, which I didn't for a while, but then I eventually started hunting back over there. And I guess at that time we was probably kind of suspicious that it could be Bigfoot, but it
was on our radar.
Yeah, it was on our radar, but I don't know. I guess your mind just doesn't really want to even go there. But then,
and you'd always hear the trees falling.
Well, but that didn't happen really till after we built out here.
Yeah.
But then in 2015, we bought 40 of the 80 acres. And then that's when things really started kind of, we started seeing more things. And we would, like when we be coming out here to work on the house, there's several power lines. Like we have two big, huge power cut lines, that intersect at the top of a big ridge over here. And then there's another small one that runs parallel with one of them. And when we would leave out, sometimes we would see something in one of these power lines, which at that time there was us and two more couples that lived back here. Now there's just us and one other couple. But it was a bad spot because you would go down this hill, and then there was the power line. So to back up to look, you'd have to back up this hill, and try to turn around. You'd have to drive on down the road and try to find a place to turn around. So a lot of times we would see stuff and really couldn't back up. But we would see, what looked like a Bigfoot standing out in these power lines, and that happened numerous times.
One day we was going to town, I guess. We had been working out here, and we was going to run into town. And as soon as we got to that little power cut, the small one, I turned and looked up there, and we were still rolling. But I seen this, what I thought was what it looked like was a big tree about 10 or 12 foot tall that had been broke over, the top broke out of it. And I just thought it was a burnt tree standing in that power line. And I asked Pamela, said, is there no snag standing out in that power line right there? And she said, I don't know. Back up. I don't want to back up on this hill. So I said, when we come back, let's look. Well, when we come back, There's absolutely nothing in that pile. What I seen there was about 10 to 12 foot and solid black, and it was big around, I don't know. And then another time I went through there, and that's the thing. I don't know why. I should have just backed up anyway, but I didn't. But I looked up there another day when I crossed right through there, and I seen what appeared to be two of them. There was one standing, and the other one was either knelt down or sitting down beside it, because it was probably, and I couldn't make out whether it was, had arms or legs or anything like that. It was just two black figures there. The other one was probably about to the tall one's waist, but it was as big in diameter, But there's nothing. There's no trees in that power line, And these were black.
And then we
seen another one. Seen something black
in the creek.
It was down by the river there when we gone out.
Yeah.
We had some friends with us, and there was a cattle guard there I've got to cross, and I was slowing down for that. And I just happened to look down the big power lines toward the river, and the underbrush, they hadn't cut those right of ways in several years, so it was really tall. It was probably 7 or 8 foot tall underbrush. But I looked down there and I seen something black right next to a cedar tree, and I slammed on my brakes, and everybody was like, "What are you doing?" I thought it reversed and backed up. And I didn't see it anymore. I said, "I've seen something right down there." The lady in the back seat said, "Was it standing by that cedar tree down there?" I said, "Yeah, that's." She said, "I seen that too," but I couldn't make out anything, no detail about it. It was just something black there. It had to be tall for us to be able to see it,
We was, after we started building the house, we come out here one day, and I had walked around to. We had come in, and I noticed something. The whole front of our house is glass. We got two sliding doors, and then windows. It's up at the top. I don't remember how many windows there are, but there's a lot. But and when I come in, I looked over at the sliding door, and I thought, "What in the world is that on the door?" And so I walked outside and walked around, and there was a handprints on the door. And it was, two handprints, like somebody were to be doing like this to look in. And you could see like all of this part, the palm and like the side of the thumb and of both hands. But they were huge, and I mean huge. And I called Paul over. I said, "Look at that." And I said, "What is that?" I said, "That's handprints." And he's like, "Well, maybe somebody come out." And I said, "You would have to be 8 foot tall, because our house is sitting on top of we got concrete floors, and the footing around the front of the house is 2 foot. So you add that plus the height of the sliding doors, and I don't know how tall the sliding doors are.
They're a little over 6 foot, I guess.
These were at the top of the doors. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to get some cleaner and try to clean it off. Well, I tried, and I scrubbed with the cleaner. It would just smear. It was real oily. And, I finally got them off. And I had taken a picture of it with my phone, but when I had bought or got a new phone, apparently some of my pictures had not updated. I lost a lot of pictures, and it was one of them. So I lost that picture. And then another night we was out here working, and I had opened up the sliding door and was standing looking out. And I thought, we have 2 cedar trees that's across the creek. And I thought I seen something run in between the trees, and it was big. And I actually told Paul, I said, I don't think I just seen something running between them trees. And then I think it was like the next day, our sister-in-law was out here. Her and her husband, he was helping Paul. And she found an arrowhead out in the yard. And so the next night after that, I went out there and was going to look to see if I could find an arrowhead. And I found 2 tracks. And it was one small one and one big one. I don't know when you're going to show these, Mark, but I sent you the pictures of those. But it was just one, one small one and one big one. The big one was about 4 foot away from the small one. And I looked all over the place and I could not find another track. And I've had people say that the small one could be a bear double step, but we had a game warden look at it and he said that was not a bear double step. And that one right there where it was at was a little bit more washed out. And that's my foot. It's a women's size 6. So.
And that small one really resembles the 5 that I seen when I first started hunting out here.
And what did the game warden say he thought it was?
He didn't know.
Say.
He didn't say.
He just left it alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say he's a friend of ours. We talk to him quite often, and Paul, showed it to him, and he was like, "No, that's not a bear."
No, I've bear hunted for 20 something years and seen a lot of tracks, and that is not a bear track.
No, it don't appear to be.
No, sure don't.
And I know that one there, it's kind of washed out, but you could see like the toes, like the ridge top. Oh, and now that right there, you want me to, found.
We'll go straight into these pictures if you like.
Okay. I'll let you, you found that.
Yeah, I was out deer hunting one day and I was coming off, there's a big ridge over here, and I was coming off of it down towards the creek, and I could just see something black in the distance and had never seen it before. So I just kept an eye on it and walked toward it, and that's what I come up on. It's just a little hut. So I went and got Pam. We went back down there, and it was big enough inside. The opening there ain't just real big, but the inside, I crawled in it myself and sat down inside of it. But all these limbs and stuff was just interwoven, just a little igloo is what it was like.
Well, a lot of that was sticker bushes. It was hard to maneuver around in. I was trying to show right there in that video the sticks that was shoved down in there, actual sticks that was manipulated, but it was really hard to kind of maneuver around. I actually fell into a foxhole.
It was real thick in there. A lot of briars around and stuff.
But what does that?
Yeah. It kind of reminds me, Larry, of the little small one we saw at Bankhead.
Yeah. Yep.
But
we looked for hair and stuff in it.
We never found him.
Never did see anything,
I remember telling Larry, I said, as small as it is, I could see a mama Bigfoot putting an infant in there to hide so that they could go forage.
I think it was.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what even Carrie said.
Yeah.
It's not there anymore. I mean, it's still there, but there's no dead tree right behind it, and the top fell out of that tree and smashed it.
But now that right there, I heard that tree get snapped. I was getting ready for bed one night, and when I flipped on the bathroom light, I heard this loud, it almost sounded like a gunshot. And I was like, what in the world was that? And as I was leaving out the next day to go to work, you have to drive, our driveway goes behind our house. and it has like a little hill. You know, when I back out of my carport, I have to drive up a little hill. And once I topped that little hill, I seen what it was, and it was that right there. And so after I got back home from work, I went up there and took a picture of it. But that was probably, how far is that from the bathroom? Maybe 50 foot.
50 foot.
But I actually heard that, and then that the eyes, I had somebody tell me that could possibly be, and if anybody knows anything about photography, because I love taking pictures, but I don't know really anything about how stuff works. But somebody said that could be the deer's eyes glaring. I don't know. But to me, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. Have you ever heard of deers, like a deer looking into the camera?
Yeah, but it almost looks like the eyes are in the front
Yeah, I mean,
of the face
yeah.
and not on the side.
Mm-hmm. But, that's what somebody had made a comment about, that it could have been the deer's eye reflecting off the camera, and the camera made the eye shine back there.
I can't tell which way the deer is looking.
I couldn't either. I
think it's looking at,
I think it's looking away from the camera.
It might be, because here's its rear end, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
don't know.
I don't think the deer is looking at the camera. I think it's facing the opposite. I think it's looking at
that.
Because you would see the eyes glowing on the deer too if they're going
right.
Here.
Yeah, I
good
agree
point.
with that. Yep.
Good point.
So I don't. That's creepy.
Yeah.
The picture on the right there of the coon there
with the raccoon and the web looking thing.
I have no clue. That I put that camera in an open field here in front of the house. There's no trees or anything, so I know it's not a spider web because there's nothing for a spider web to hang from. And there's no lights. It was an infrared camera, so I have no clue what that bright light is in the middle there. And the webbing or whatever this thing is past the coon. The coon is in between the camera and that webbing.
Right.
Because you can see the grass between the webbing and the camera as well. But I have no clue what that is.
Maybe it's a coon hunter with a net gun.
Well,
I don't know. That's the only thing I could think of, because that is weird.
And this picture here, I got it in the woods just right beside the house here.
Well, it's a couple hundred yards back.
A couple hundred yards in there. But that was like at 4, seemed like it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't remember. I seen the date on it when I took it, but I don't really know. Right, it looks like an image of something sitting there in front of the camera, but I don't really know.
And I don't know what that, like somebody said, well, is that a mouth? And I was like, I don't think it's a mouth. I think it was just a camera glitch. But
it looks like a head and shoulders, and the left arm is kind of raised up.
And then you can see like the sprigs of hair coming off the top of the head.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it looks like. I mean, it could be either that or we got a camel out here.
And the picture on the left is the original picture, and the one on the right, I just added a little contrast to it just to kind of darken it up a little bit to see if anything would stand out more. But that's, I don't know, it's kind of creepy to be going through your camera and see that.
Yeah. We was like, whoa. Because, I mean, what would make that? I mean, there's nothing but the shape like that. And here's another track that we found actually back there where we just caught that last image. I mean, it wasn't, I don't think, around the same time, but I don't know if, I mean, to me, that looks like either toes or fingers. I mean, I may be wrong, but I just took a picture of it because it was you can see to me what looks like toes or fingers or something.
Yeah, you tell it looks like digits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
then, that's my foot again. Like I said, size 6. So.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
That's the tree on the left laying down is the one when Carrie was here that got pushed over or fell over or whatever that we was looking for, and me and Pam went and found it. That was it there.
And then the little branch there on the other side, we found that up on the hill whenever Carrie was here.
I had a deer stand in that tree, and I moved another stand up there, so I tore my old stand down, but I left the nails, drove into the tree, and somehow there's a branch in between those nails. Now, I can't hardly believe that it just fell and lodged in there.
There is no way.
It's possible, I guess, but I don't see how it's possible.
It was like Carrie said, it would defy all sense of logic, for a limb to come in sideways.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to tell you to get those nails out of that tree.
And it's still hanging in the tree.
it's-
We've never messed with
We've
it.
never
It's
messed.
still there.
How high are the nails from
They're
off the ground?
probably 10 or 12 foot at
Yeah,
least.
probably about 10 foot. Because somebody I think went up there and wiggled the stick, and they said it was really lodged in there. I mean, it's crammed in there. You couldn't wiggle it out.
I think Carrie did. But I didn't ever touch it.
Yeah. But because I remember him talking about how tight it was shoved in there.
Yeah. Actually, that is my favorite picture that you sent me.
Really.
And yeah, because that just is like what Carrie said. It just defies all logic
Yeah.
that a limb could fall and wind up like that,
Yeah.
wedged in between those 3 nails.
Yeah. And a person's not going to get 10 or 12 foot up in that tree to wedge a limb up there.
And why would they do it?
Yeah.
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 Another thing is, we had already been up there, and I was actually the one that noticed this, and I walked around the tree, and I was like, "What in the world?" And so I, hollered at them, and then they come over, and then but then as we was looking at that, we looked down, and it looked like a track on the ground.
The ground was real hard.
The ground was really hard. Carrie actually was live on, I think it was Daniela's show at that time. He was doing a live up there, and he actually, showed it live. But it looked like a track. So and I think that they said that because they slept up there, and I know Carrie was saying that I think the truck got bumped or something.
Seemed like
yeah.
it.
But and they was Carrie was wondering if it happened, if it actually come up there and put that in there while he was up there sleeping. So I don't know, because the track was right there beside the tree. Or pretty close. I'm gonna say
10, about 8 foot from it.
Yeah.
Probably.
But it's fairly close. So I don't know.
Yeah, those are really cool pictures. I want to talk about what happened to you, Pam, 2 weeks before you had your sighting.
You mean a week or
A week? Yeah.
Actually, it was all in the same week.
Okay.
Like it started on a Monday. It was on a Monday. It was June the 14th, I think. I had went out to do my swimming pool, And I was laying on the mat, floating around, and I heard this weird whistle it was over in the power line. It was a really, really strange whistle. It was super loud, and I was like, what? I'm bird that can do that. And then a little bit later, I heard it again, and had moved a little further, I guess to say north. And then a little bit later, I was looking down this path that leads back to a little opening, and I could see something that was reddish brown, and it was like sticking out from the bushes. It looked like part of a head and a shoulder, and I knew that it couldn't be a deer because of how tall it was. And so I laid there and I watched it for a couple of minutes, and it never moved. And I thought, well, I didn't have a deck or anything around the pool at this time. All I had was this little tray. And I thought, well, I'm going to float over and get a drink of water and see if whatever it is moves. And so I floated over. And when I floated over at that time, there was a cedar tree at the edge of this path, and a limb would stuck out, and it would kind of block that area. So when I floated over, I got a drink, and when I floated back, it was gone. And I thought, okay, so it was something alive. And then that night, Paul and I, or that evening, we sat out front, and we heard a wood knock come from that area back in there. It was, it was loud. And then on Wednesday night, we was sitting back out there, or I say night, it was evening. We heard a knock come from that area, and then from the opposite side of the house, we heard what sounded like a really rough sneeze. I mean, we've heard deer, sneeze. This was not no deer.
No,
it was deep and rough. And Paul actually got up and walked to the other side of the house and was looking, but it was too dark in the woods to see anything. And then the next day, you want me to continue on with everything, Mark?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, the next day, that was on a Thursday, we was getting ready to leave to go on vacation. So I knew I had to try to get in there and clean the pool. I hadn't cleaned it in several days. And so I was going out, and as I had to walk out the door, walk beside my car, and then there's some steps to the right that go down. You have to go down a few steps to get down to the yard where the pool is. Well, as I was walking past the car, I heard it sounded like a grunt. That it was behind the house in the woods, and I was looking. It was a deep grunt. It's kind of sounded, I guess maybe a buck grunting, but not really. I don't know. It's way deeper. And I was looking around, didn't see anything. And so I went on ahead, went down, and I always turn on my radio, and I have Christian music playing. The Christian music makes me feel better. And I always take protection with me when I go outside. And so I, turned that on, and I got in the pool. And as soon as I got in the pool, I heard that grunt again. And I was looking, and I couldn't see anything. So I went to cleaning, and, at some point through the process of cleaning, I heard sounded like a limb crashing, like breaking and crashing. And, I was kind of nervous. And then I heard it sounded like metal hitting metal. And back there, Paul has a lot of metal pipes and stuff that he uses, for welding and projects and stuff. And it literally sounded like something picked up a piece of metal and dropped it on another piece of metal, And so I was like, okay, I'm getting a little freaked. And I was making my last, I was going to make one more last circle around the pool to skim off the top. And when I got, I guess I was almost a little over halfway around the pool. And I just happened to look up. And before I go any further, I want to say I believe in guardian angels 100%. And this is going to sound a little crazy, but I've heard mine speak to me. This had made the 4th time in my life. The other 3 times it had either saved my life or one of my children. And so when I looked up, there was one standing there. It was about 40 yards away, 20 yards being like yard and driveway, and the other 20 in the woods. And I looked at it for like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 seconds. And I heard her tell me, don't look at it. And so I looked straight back down into the water. I remember my mind was just racing like, oh my God. And I knew to walk towards my ladder, I was going to be getting closer to it. Where Paul parks his truck, we have like a little carport, and it has the roof kind of comes down over the sides. And so I started walking towards the ladder, and I was trying to look, and I couldn't see it anymore because of the way the roof come down. And then we had some stuff stacked on top of the lawnmower. I think there was like a cooler and a pull mat. It still had air in it, but it had a hole in it. And we had stuffed it down the seat. But there was some stuff piled up there, and I couldn't see. So I didn't know where it was at. And I kind of stepped back, and I was trying to look underneath that thing, the awning, and I couldn't see it. And I just remember turning back towards my ladder, and I don't remember anything. I don't remember getting out of my own pool. The next thing I remember, I was standing on that little landing that goes up to the steps. And I remember I was looking around and wondering where it was at. And I felt like I was in like a dream. And there was like fog. It's foggy. I remember it being foggy looking to me. I mean, I don't think it was actually foggy outside, but it was just foggy. But I remember, looking around briefly, wondering where it was at. And then I turned and went up the steps and ran into the house. And I don't know how much time was lost. I do know that, when I would plan on getting in the pool, I would always try to time it to where I could get in and then get out and come in and get cleaned up and then start getting supper ready before Paul got home. Well, when I came in the house, I went upstairs and got, cleaned up. And when I come down the stairs, Paul was home. And so I don't know. To me, it seems like I would have had to have lost probably 30 minutes of time. But I don't know because I don't remember. I don't remember when I turned and looked at that ladder. That's the last thing I remember until I was standing there by those steps. But this thing, we done a size comparison, and it was probably 7.5 foot tall. It had to be 4 foot wide at the shoulders. It was humongous. I mean, the width of this thing, and the shoulders, they didn't like have a slant or anything to them. They just went straight across. The arms on this thing were massive. And they were kind of bowed out. It was like it was in a charge position. It had its hair, I'm assuming the hair was pulled over the face. I could not see anything on the face. And this thing was well groomed. It was crazy how, and I don't remember seeing any skin except for maybe, I guess, the hands. I've seen the hands and they were black. But the hair was reddish brown. I could see the pec muscles. It tapered at the waist. I could see the right side of it really good because the sun was like hitting it on that side. I could see like the thigh muscle on this thing, and it was massive. And then I could see all the way down the right leg and to the top of the calf muscle. And then on the right arm, I could see the hair hanging off the arm. It was probably about 6 inches long. And I never seen this thing move, but I could see the hair on this thing. The wind was blowing it. I could see the hair blowing in the wind. But the size of this thing, the width of the shoulders. I mean, to me, it looked like a humongous human. I mean, as far as the muscle tone and everything, the head was weird. I don't know if it had its head kind of bent down because it was just like a hump on the top of these massive shoulders. You know, there was no neck. The hair was hanging down over the face. But, you know, and where this thing went, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what happened. And that freaks me out probably almost as much as seeing it because I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Do you recall whenever you were on that landing if your clothes were still wet or if you were dry?
I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything. Like I said, you know, I remember standing there and it was like, best way I can describe it is like when you go in for surgery. I don't know if y'all ever had surgery, but like when they give you the medicine and you start to feel that medicine kick in and you start getting that weird feeling like you're in a daze or a dream. That's what I felt like. You know, I felt like I was in like a dream or I don't know. And
probably adrenaline.
You know, I don't know. You know, I don't know if adrenaline can do that or, and it was like foggy. You know, I don't know. Only thing you know, me being, you know, loving the Lord as much as I do. And I know my guardian angel warned me. You know, I always think, well, maybe it was just the Lord protecting me. And I don't know. I have no clue. But
your brain could have shut down from the shock of seeing the thing too. Yeah. So
I don't know. All I know is I just knew my mind was racing because I knew I had to get out of that pool. You know, the pool comes up to my neck, you know, so
yeah.
I felt like I was trapped. And
it makes me wonder if this thing has been to that tree several times because I went up there when I got home. She wanted to do kind of like a size comparison. So I went up to that tree. And I did see what looked like a track in the leaves. I'm not going to say that it was, but it's what it looked like to me. It was really hard to, you know, a lot of leaves in that area there. But there is a beat out path coming off the hill straight to that tree. And it's not a real wide path. It kind of looks like a deer trail, but it was just beat out. And the trail is still there, but it's not look like it's been used in a while now, you know. But at that time, it looked like it was used daily, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and even Carrie said that it had probably come through there and watched me a lot.
That's what it appeared according to the path that went to that tree. Because we actually drove the side by side up through there the other day, and I was looking at it. And you can still see the path, but it's not wore out like it was. You know, strange.
It's I've said it before, but that's one thing that I think would really just creep me out is if I lost time.
Mhm.
And I know several people that has happened to. And I don't want no part of that. That I mean, it's scary
Mhm.
to think about, not remembering something and how much time has
Yeah.
gone by.
Well, and it even took me a couple of days to even realize I had lost time. I was so focused on what I saw that I didn't even think about what happened afterwards. Um, and then, I mean, what it does to a person mentally, the seeing it, and then even the time loss. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to try to deal with. Um, I used to be all over this property before all this. Um, I would go out taking pictures and wouldn't even have, a firearm with me. Um, I would go hunting by myself, never. But after that day, no. I mean, I make myself do stuff now. I mean, because I thought, I can't be a prisoner here in my house.
Yeah.
So I make myself go back out to the pool. I make myself go hunting. Now I won't go hunting by myself. Because I've had some other scary things happen even since my sighting while I was hunting. And it's hard. It's really hard. And just trying to, I don't know, the fear it's consuming at times, but I'm one of those people that, it's going to take a lot to make me cower. And, and I pray. So I pray and try to have faith and just keep going,
That's great. That's great. Now, right before the show, you sent me a picture,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to see if I can pull it up. Take me a second.
Do you have curtains over all those windows out front?
Yeah, we've got curtains on the bottom. Oh, okay. That rock right there. Me and Paul was sitting out front. When was this? A couple of years ago. And I looked down between our chairs, and they're this laid. And I picked it up. And I said, "What is this? And where did it come from?" And he was like, "We don't even have." He said, "That's mortar. We don't even have anything like that on our property." And we was trying to figure out where it came from. So I took it and I set it on the edge of the house out here. Like I said, we have a 2-foot footing around the house, and I just set it on the ledge. And then last summer we was doing some spring cleaning, and we was spraying off the house and spraying off the concrete. And I asked Paul where that rock was, and he said, "I don't know." He said, "I didn't move it because I was going to move it." And he had put a couple other rocks up there that he had found that looks, kind of like some type of Indian rocks, and those were still there, but that was gone, and I didn't know where it went. Well, and that was probably in May or June when we was doing that. Well, then whenever Carrie was here, and he was sitting out front right before I done the pool scenario, Paul was walking up, and behind the swing thing, it's a glider swing where Carrie was sitting there, that rock laid.
We've
Wow.
been looking for a long time.
And so Paul picked it up, and he was telling Carrie about it, and Paul put it back over there on the ledge. Well, then this, I guess it was beginning of this year sometime, I have an outside cat, and the critters always come up and steal his food. So I bought a feeder with a timer, and I can actually control it from my phone. And Paul built a box to put the feeder down in, and he made it to where the bowl will stick out of the little box, but made it to where, the critters can't get in there and get the food. And so he had put the box up there, and I said, "What did you do with that rock?" He said, "I didn't see the rock." So the rock was gone again. I looked all over out there thinking maybe he knocked it off or something. I looked all over out there and I didn't know where it went. And, one day I was standing out there, Paul was out there, and I just said, "All right, I wish I had my rock back." I just done it. That's the thing. I don't want to mess with these things, but I just thought I'm going to try this just to see what happens. And, I said that, and it wasn't but a couple of days later, I was coming back up from the steps up there, and I looked down, and there was that dang rock laying there. Right there by the cat feeder.
Wow.
And I just like, oh my.
I don't even know where it is now, dude.
It's out there. Yeah. But I don't know.
It's strange. I don't
It's strange.
have no clue where that came from.
And then we had another thing with rocks, weird happen. We had a wedding out here, not this past May, but May before, and it was out in the front yard, and our daughter had came in, for the wedding, and then after, she stayed till the wedding was on Saturday, and she stayed till like Monday. Well, when she was getting ready to leave, I walked outside with her, and she was putting her stuff in her vehicle, and I just happened to look down where Paul parks his truck, and there was like a black spot down there on the ground. And I was like, I didn't know what it was, and I was going to walk down there and look. And I was getting ready to walk down the steps, and I just caught out of the corner of my eye what I thought was a rock. And I went to just kind of kick the rock out of the way, and that's when I realized as I was kicking it, it was actually rocks stacked on top of each other. The rocks are still out there. And I turned to Anna. I said, "Did you see that?" And she didn't see it. And I was so mad at myself for kicking, which I was just going to kick the rock off the step. And the steps are concrete, so they all kind of blended in together. And they weren't big rocks. They were smaller rocks, probably, I don't know. They ranged in sizes, but nothing any bigger than a golf ball, and they weren't just perfectly round, they were just random rocks. And I was just like, what in the world, stacking rocks right there on them steps. And so I walked down to see what the black spot was, and Paul had the passenger side rear glass had gotten busted out of his truck, and it was laying on the ground. And that's what I was seeing. That's what I was walking down there to look at. Don't really know how the window got busted. And I don't understand why they would stack rocks. And somebody has, I thought maybe it was because they liked the wedding. I don't know. But, and then somebody else had suggested that maybe they was trying to say, we didn't break the window. I don't know. But the rock stacking was really, really weird. And I've sat out there before and tried to restack these rocks like I remember seeing them when they was falling, and I can't do it. So.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Paul.
I was going to mention another thing that happened too. My brother had been fishing one day, and he come out, and he had some live fish with him. He had a one bass that was probably, I don't know, it was good 18 inches long. It was a nice size largemouth bass. And then probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 smaller fish. I think maybe a crappie or 2 and some perch. I don't really remember what the others were, but that one bass was pretty nice. So he wanted to put them in the creek overnight, and he was going to come back out the next day. Well, the creek there's a little kind of a deep hole there, and then it comes up to shallow. There wasn't a lot of water in the creek at that point. It was during the summer, and it was still flowing, but there's a lot of rock and gravel through there. So I knew it'd be safe to put them in there because the fish couldn't swim away. You know, they wasn't enough water for them to come up out of there and swim down the creek. And if they did, there's a dam on down that they couldn't have got across anyway. But anyway, so we put them in there, and the next day I went out there, and all the fish was gone, even that big bass, but there was no sign of anything eating them or anything like that. I don't know where that big bass went.
And even when Carrie was here, Paul took him over there and showed him where, you know, they put the fish, and he was like, there ain't no way a fish could have got out of there.
No.
You know.
Good.
And you know, Carrie was like, that's really weird. He said, it makes you wonder if they was watching you put them in there, you know.
Yeah. We've got some audio that you've captured, and I would like to first off saying Pam has the best ears because she was catching things that I don't catch. I guess it's too many years of sitting with amplifiers on both sides of me. I don't know, but it's so we're going to start off. Let me get it. Okay, here we go. And this first one, I've got the first rock clack marked, but there is another one right after you hear an insect. So we'll play this one first. That was definitely a rock clack.
Yeah, I heard that with my own ears. I was in my pool, and I always record. You know, I either use a recorder or my phone, and I think that was with my phone. But I always record in case there's something, a knock or whatever. And I heard that one, and it was. It was the creek is. I don't know, maybe 40 foot, 50 foot from my pool. Like that. And it was maybe a little farther, but it was up the creek, but I mean, it's so thick you can't see through there. But it wasn't very far away from me. I was like, oh my God.
Okay, and I'll pull up the second one. These, well, I'll just let y'all listen to them.
Now that whistle there that was the same whistle I was hearing when I was in my pool the day when I saw something down that path peeking out from the bushes. And I said I heard a whistle, coming. It was like across the power line, and then I heard it again. It had moved a little north. It was that same type of whistle. It like I said, it's very distinct.
Yeah, it is. It's I don't know. It's just people talk about it all the time. I can't think of what they call it, but no tone difference in it. Just
and you look at it on the spectrogram, and bird whistles look totally different on the spectrogram, and they're, I don't know, to me it's pretty impressive. And do you have you got a backstory on that? What you remember what you were doing?
I was in the pool.
In the pool. It seems like they get attracted to you when you get in that pool.
Well, and I mean, there's times that though I can just walk outside and here it goes. I can hear a knock or a weird whistle. I come out of the house one day and was walking down the Paul shop, and there was a knock right behind the house. I pull up and get out of my car. Knock. So I mean, it's creepy.
Yeah.
Very creepy.
Okay, I'm gonna play this next one. And this one here, Pam was playing a flute, and you can hear something towards the end of her playing. And we'll let her give the backstory on it after we watch this.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Trying to play along.
Yeah, that's what Pam said. It was almost like that. And you can see that little bit of pause that she does when it does. And she said, I heard it.
Yeah. And what's sad, Mark, is they're better at music than I am.
I don't know. I kind of like your harmonica playing. So
have you replicated that? Have you tried it again and anything happened, or is that the only time you really did it?
I think I did sit outside another day and was trying to play. The deer liked it. They was just watching me like, what are you doing? And my cat liked it. He was going crazy. He wouldn't leave me alone. But I don't remember hearing anything else. But I was, when I done that, we was kind of more further away from the house. We was actually burning some brush, and we was just kicking back, and I was playing the flute, and I had to record her because the last time we had burned brush, we had some family out, and we was sitting out there, and it was at night, and my sister-in-law was sitting across from me, and there was a knock to my right, and I looked at her and I said, "Did you hear that?" She said, "Yeah, what was that?" And I said, "That was a knock." And it scared her so bad she got up and moved to like everybody. But nobody else heard that one. But then it wasn't 5 minutes later, from the opposite side of us was a loud knock, and everybody heard that one. And so that was my, I thought, well, I'm going to play, or set the recorder out, and I'll just play the flute and see what happens. And that's what happened. So.
Yeah, that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
has any of your friends or your grandkid, your kids had any kind of activity when they come to visit y'all?
Son.
Well, yeah, our son, he stayed here with us. He had to move back home for a little bit, right after we got the house built. And back then, you didn't have phone service in here. We had to buy a cell phone booster, a $1 one, and but we didn't have it yet. So you would have to go outside to try to get any type of signal. And he was outside, and he called me out there, and there was something. I mean, you could hear this tree. It was just whipping back and forth. Branches was breaking. He was like, "What is that?" And I told him what I thought was going on, And then I went out there one time to send a text, and I walked out the door and was standing at the corner of the house, and all of a sudden I heard a loud crack, and then the tree come down. But I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that has experienced anything out here.
My nephew, he was hunting out here.
Yeah, forgot about
A year or two ago.
Mhm.
I don't remember.
His nephew would come out here and hunt with me when they go on their yearly bear hunting trip. I have to stay here by myself, and I won't hunt by myself now. So his nephew always comes out and hunts with me. So,
And he told me that he was back there hunting, and he seen a bush moving up on top of the hill. And he thought, well, that's probably a buck up there rubbing on that tree, So he started slipping up the hill, going get on up closer to it and see if he could get a shot at it. And well, the further he got up the hill, the bigger the tree got. And when he got to the top of the hill, it wasn't a little bush. It was like a 30-foot tall tree. And he said the whole top of that tree was just whipping. Like he thought it was a little bush whipping, from a deer. He said when he got up to the top of the hill, it was about a 30-foot tall tree, and the top was just whipping in it.
Huh.
I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to hang around to see what was making that move.
Well, this was after my sighting. I was in my stand. I've had a couple of incidents. The first one, it was last year. Last year during, I think it was muzzleloader. I was sitting in my stand, and to my right, I heard what sounded like a mouth pop, like when you take your finger and pop. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. I heard that to my right, and I think it was like two of them. And so I was texting Paul by then. I'm like, I'm hearing something. And then it wasn't but a few minutes after that, across from me in the woods to my left, it sounded like something clacking rocks. It was just a couple, like clack, clack, Now I was texting Paul, there's something going on. And then just, I don't know, probably 30, 45 seconds after that, behind me, probably, I would say, maybe 75, 100 yards. I'm just guessing, something let out this howl. And I texted Paul, said, "You come get me now." And he did, but then after that, now this one right here terrified me. I was sitting in the stand, and Paul had dropped me off, and he had went up the power line, and it's a big hill. So it's not like you can, like, I could really yell and he could be there quickly, but I was sitting in the stand, and it was getting, it wasn't dark. I mean, it was still legal to where if you would have seen a deer, you could have shot it, but it was getting late, and everything was real quiet. And to my left is a big cedar thicket. I mean, you can't see, there's a creek there. You can't see nothing through there. And something took a big, deep breath, and I mean big, deep breath. And then it just slowly let it out, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" And I literally, I was freaking because to get down, I'd have to walk straight towards these trees, and I thought, I am not moving. And I had my gun ready, and I sat there and just, I was so glad to see those headlights on that 4-wheeler coming because I was ready. Oh,
Yeah,
but
you used to hear a lot of trees fall too.
yeah, there was one day we was hunting. This was before my sighting. I was hearing weird things behind my stand, like that thumping noise, and then I heard a tree, fall over. And then a little bit later I heard another tree fall over, and I'm like, 2 trees? And I kept hearing this weird thumping noise back there. Well, then I come home for lunch, and I was telling Paul about it, and I was like, it's kind of scary. And so he went back. He was going to sit with me that afternoon. And because I told him, I said, if you don't believe me, I said, you just come sit with me. And so he went over there, and we sat down, and there was no wind. It was
Perfectly
calm.
calm.
Perfectly calm. We hadn't been in there 10 minutes. And across the power line in the woods over there, here comes another tree. I mean, really, 3 trees? I mean, you could tell it was a big tree. It just came down and hit the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, is that common?
No.
No.
But it's just like that. It's stuff like that all the time, and I know like deer season's coming, or muzzleloader season's coming up in October, and I look so forward to deer hunting, but then at the same time my anxiety level just rises and rises and rises and rises because I want to hunt, but then there's the other part,
Yeah.
and it's tough.
We've got one more audio to listen to. That was pretty cool. And when I looked at that close up on the spectrogram, it is just textbook of what we look for.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, we could hear that. I could hear it. I thought it was something mimicking my flute again. That was the same. That was the same night. I caught something earlier, and then the earlier one you just showed, that was later. And but yeah, that right there, we could hear it because I was asking Paul, is that something mimicking my flute?
It's crazy.
I can't believe how fast time has gone by tonight. But I would like to spend a minute or two and to talk about your new YouTube channel. And I've watched all the videos that you've pulled out, and I want to encourage everybody out there to go and check it out. I'm going to drop the link into chat right now so everybody can go and subscribe.
What is your thoughts on that salt block? We've got a salt lick out there that's probably, I don't know, 10 foot or probably about 8 foot by 5 foot in diameter. And we've used it for years, and it's probably a foot and a half deep or so now. But back earlier in the summer, I guess it was, I took a salt block out there, and I put it in that hole, And 2 days later, we went back over there, and the salt block was gone. And so another salt block out, and that one there stayed for. It finally dissolved. It took about a month and a half, and it finally dissolved away. But the first one, I have no clue where that thing, what could have took it. What, I don't know any animal that would pick up a salt block with his mouth and carry it off.
No, they're pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And pretty big.
And pretty salty.
I know we've heard several stories from Bear and Kumbo about salt blocks getting taken from cattle farms and everything. So,
And old smokehouses, like the old smokehouse might not even be standing anymore, but they're still in there digging in that dirt, going after that salt.
No doubt. So, yeah, that's not a rare occasion to happen, but it makes you scratch your head.
It does.
Because they don't walk off.
No.
I said that it grow legs and walk off,
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your channel that you've started up. And I'm just gonna throw up what it looks like, and I'm gonna put the link back in the chat room, and we'll have the link tomorrow morning. I'll pin it to the top of the comment section.
Well, I just felt like for me it was something I needed to do. I think part of it is because, when Carrie was here, we told him to consider this his research area. That was what we told him. He was very excited. And he was looking so forward to coming back out here. He was talking about, bringing Linda and bringing Bradley. And I don't know. I just felt like this was something, he's not here to do it. So I want people to see the evidence, and I know what it's like to have to live around these things. I know what it's done to me. And if there's anybody out there just wants to talk, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to help people, just to have somebody to talk to, and if they want to share their story, we can share their story, or if they don't want to share it, and, I can tell it for them. Or if they just want to talk, that's fine. That's my main thing. I just want to be there for somebody if they need somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
And then in the process, maybe share some evidence.
Well, y'all had enough cool activity happen, like the cell phone thing. If you were to capture something like that again, that would be neat to see. And the vocalizations. So it's going to be hard. You've already seen Carrie. He tried to catch them, and they'd catch him whenever he was doing something else. But they seem to be aware somehow. But
well, I know there was one day when I walked outside, there was some kind of, I don't know what it was going on. I ain't going to say it was birds, but I don't know. It was weird. And I was listening to it, and as I was walking down, and I thought, I'm going to turn on my phone and record this. And as soon as I hit the record button, it just shut up and didn't hear a peep out of it after that. And I'm like, you are kidding me.
Yeah.
It was like they knew,
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
We put an apple out one time and put a camera on that apple back here.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, that section of the woods,
Mm-hmm.
every time we put cameras back there, the cameras go bad. I don't know why.
I mean, don't even work anymore. Brand new camera.
Yeah.
Won't even work no more.
Yeah. The batteries drain very quick, and the camera they're tore up. They won't work anymore. We went through no telling how many cameras in that one area.
Yeah.
But I had a camera on an apple. There's a cedar tree, and I broke a limb off of the cedar tree to where they was just a little stub sticking out about there, you know. And I drove that apple over that little stub sticking out and put a camera on. And we had, it was a photo of a raccoon.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the apple. And then the next clip, the apple was gone. And then I don't remember. There was probably something else. There was 2 or 3 pictures took, but never did show what took that apple.
Yeah, never did show what took the apple.
Mm.
It was a raccoon was on the ground when it caught it. You know, it wasn't in the tree or anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was strange.
Yes, sir. It is.
Yeah, it seems like very few people have luck with game cams. I don't know what it is. I guess one person that I know that has had good luck is Dan, Ricky, and Vicky Fulcher. And one thing that Dan would do is he would have 2 or more game cams, and he would point up towards each other.
Mm-hmm.
And he had luck with that in Oklahoma. But I don't know what it is. That's why I went to plot watchers, something that doesn't have an IR light and takes a picture however often you set it. Like I usually set mine for every second. It'll take a picture and it'll put it in a video format. And so that's what I've kind of gone to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the game cams you can set up to do that.
Yeah.
So
I've been wanting to put one really high in a tree, just pointing down. You know, I've never done it yet, but I've been considering that, just getting really high in a tree and just pointing down. You know.
yeah.
I would like to get a super clear piece of plastic, like really clear, wrap a game camera in it. I mean, which I don't know if it went off, I don't know how it worked, and then put like a gut pile on top of it. Or I guess if you ain't worried about your game camera, just throw the guts on top of it. But that's what I told Paul. I said that's about the only way you're going to catch something is you're going to have to catch it off guard. And if it's digging through the guts, then boop, there you go. You know, there's
yeah. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
You know, we've done the cooler thing. You know, putting one in a cooler, so if something opens up the cooler, it'll take their picture. But I've never thought about a gut pile. I like the way this lady thinks, Larry.
Yeah. Yeah, I've not thought of that.
I think it would work. You know, if they like the gut pile, you know, I mean, put that camera underneath them guts. I mean, you have to have some way to keep it off the lens.
Right.
You know, so you'd have to have some really clear plastic. You know, really clear plastic.
So it'd still get on the plastic.
Well, yeah, it'd still get on the plastic, but I don't know. I think it would work. You might get something.
Hey, it's worth a try.
Yeah. We are just about out of time. Can you think of any more interaction stories that you would like to share with us?
I'm sure there's more. I mean, you know, we've had things kind of like hit the house, and there's no trees, you know, that close to the house to where it could have been a branch or anything like that.
And then when our son, he heard something take off down the creek one night, and it was making some kind of
weird noise,
weird beeping noise or something. He said,
he said
he said you hear it running down the creek. So the next day, me and him went down the creek just looking for tracks and stuff, and something whistled at us down there.
Oh,
and
that reminds me. Go ahead.
And I turned and I said, "Did you whistle?" He said, "No, I thought you whistled." But it was real close, where, you know, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't ever see anything, but it was a loud whistle right there, right by us.
Hmm.
You know.
I know I was walking across the field one day. Paul was in front of me, and something went. I can't whistle, but I looked at Paul. You didn't hear it, did you? But I heard it. It was like whistling at a pretty girl. And I was like, what in the world? I mean, there ain't nobody out here. It was just me and Paul. And then I was taking pictures one day of a tree we have out here that blooms in the spring, and Paul and his brothers was up here. They was working on Paul's shop, and I was standing there. I was taking pictures, and all of a sudden I hear, "Hey!" And I look around, and I thought, well, maybe it was one of them, and it just echoed. And so I was continued taking pictures, and then I heard again, "Hey!" And I was like, and I thought, no, this came from behind me. And so I turned around and I looked. I mean, there was nobody there. And then I heard it after I heard it the third time, I left. I almost felt like, I've heard people say that they can mimic a human's voice. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that at the time. But I thought, I ain't going to walk over there and see who's hollering. But there's nobody over there, But that's what it sounded like.
I know he's probably needing to wrap up, but probably two more things. The knocks we was hearing last year sound like somebody taking a 2x4 and smacking two 2x4s together. And we was hearing it kind of in behind her stand several times. And I walked out of the house one day, fixing to go down to the shop, and it was right behind my shop. And it sounded like two 2x6s. It was loud.
Well, you know how like if you take a 2x4 or 2x6 and you drop it on top of the other one, it makes that smacking noise, but it has that like clunky noise to it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it sounded like, but it would move. Like I was hearing it behind my stand, and then I heard it to the left of my stand. And then it went back behind my stand, and I thought, is somebody building over there? And so, when Paul got home, we drove over there. There's nobody over there. And then he heard it the next day?
The next morning.
Next morning behind his shop.
Right behind my shop.
And I'm like.
Completely different direction.
Yeah, completely different direction.
And then one more story. I know he's probably needing to wrap things up.
We can sit here and tell y'all stuff.
Y'all just keep going.
But we was getting ready to go deer hunting one morning, and we walked out before daylight. And I've got a shop light, a vapor light down by the shop, and we was just walked under that vapor light, and it was starting to break daylight. You could just barely see across the fields, and she looked across the field over right beside that salt lick. And her stand is probably another 50 foot, 75 foot.
Not probably not that far.
Yeah, that's at least that. Anyway, from that. And there's some cedar trees there. Well, she looked up and she said, what is that right there?
I said, did you see that?
And I said, see what? She said, there's something beside that cedar tree. And it leaned out. She could see the leg and the arm and the head.
It stepped out. And like it was going to step out, and it saw us and turned.
And so I just took off running, and I run over there. Never seen anything. I don't know what I would have done if I'd caught it.
I could see it plainly. And then after it got daylight, and he come. Oh, and that was another thing is after that. Oh God! After I saw this was stuff like before my sighting. Like my actual sighting. After I saw that and I was sitting in my stand, I could hear something going through the woods. It started out at like if I'm, facing here, and then it was starting out at like my 3 o'clock, and then I heard it making its way all the way around me, and then the squirrels was just going berserk. So I thought, but I could see it leaned out, and I could see the arm and the leg, and it literally turned. I watched this thing turn. And then when Paul come back later and we looked at how it was probably about 8 foot tall. But could I say 100%? I mean, you know how when it's dark, sometimes you think, well, maybe it was my eyes playing tricks on me. That's what you tell yourself anyways, or, that's what maybe it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. And maybe that was just a deer walking behind me, making the squirrels bark. I mean, that's what you tell yourself.
Yeah.
Or, but, I could probably come up with other stuff, but I know you're needing this.
I think what we ought to have is a part 2 here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Oh, well, and after this deer season, there might be a good part 2. Who knows?
Well, it's been fantastic having y'all on. And sometimes you just meet people and you feel like that they're family. And I just really feel like Paul and Pam are family. And I appreciate y'all so much coming on. Larry, do you have any final words?
Yeah, I thank y'all for coming on too. I know I guess Pam's the one that gets on the YouTube the most. And I can remember talking to her in the little chat and about Carrie and all that. So yeah. I was excited to have y'all come on and tell y'all's experiences and everything, because I know he was more excited about y'all's experience there than a lot of them had been on previous. So I knew there was something special going on there. So, and I'd forgot about those lights. I'd still like to see that, but
crazy. Well, that was, I saw the lights here too on the outside the windows, which we won't go into that, but
we can next time.
Yeah. Because I'm sure there's more stuff. I'm sure there's more stuff I'm forgetting. It's kind of hard to keep.
The arm in the creek.
Yeah. There's more stuff.
Yeah.
But I appreciate y'all for letting us come on, and thank you, Mark, for helping with the audio.
You're welcome.
And I was going to ask you, LBL. Y'all go to LBL a lot, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, do y'all go to Tennessee side or Kentucky?
Both.
Because our daughter lives very close to LBL.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, it'd be awesome if y'all had another get-together somewhere close there, and we could come to it.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, anytime y'all get a hankering and want to come, you just let us know, and we'll meet you up there.
Okay.
And share a campfire with you.
Yep. That would be fun, because I hear y'all talk about going up there a lot, So I thought, man, that'd be awesome to.
Yeah, we'll give you the $2 tour.
Yeah, and it's not as scary as some people say. So.
I think there's a lot of dog men up there.
Oh yeah, they're all over it.
Yeah. I don't even want to talk about him.
You can barely close the car door without hitting a dog man.
All right, we want to thank everybody that's tuned in tonight in our chat. I saw that we had over 200 people in chat at one time, and we know people are going to be watching this at a later time, and we appreciate y'all taking time out of your lives to watch. I want to say congratulations to Spencer and Misty from Woods Walkers. They hit 1,000 subs, and they haven't really been on the air that long. I think that just shows their personalities and what kind of people they are, and we love their show. We consider them a sister channel. And so we want to say congratulations to them. And like I said at the beginning of the show, we want to remember Linda and all of Carrie's friends on this very sad first anniversary that's coming up on the 13th.
Yeah.
And Hate to end it on a sad note like that, but we all, everybody that you see on the screen now, thought so much of Carrie and are so appreciative that we got to spend time with him. And
Definitely.
but with that, we will say night night, footers.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you would like to support Beast TV, check out our gear. We have coffee mugs, face masks, gaiters, shirts, and tank tops. The link is pinned at the top of the comment section. Everything is always marked down 20%. So come check out our junk.
This has been a Sawdust production.